Ladies and gentlemen, this is the state of the scene.
Yo, what the fuck is up? Warped Tour, the state of the scene at SOTS Podcast on all social media. Sam here with Marcos.
Life. It never die. Women are my favorite guy. Sex. I'm wanting more. Okay? Tell the world, stop the war.
Bro, truer words never been spoken. Song of the summer. Finally, we got a song of summer, by the way. Like,
It's between that
late July. We had to, we were holding out.
and the Electric Callboy cover.
Yeah. Those two, in that order, though.
Yeah. And they're the same song, pretty much.
Yes, again. What is the name of the Stop the War song?
Does it have a name?
I don't know. We're going to call it Stop the War, though. That's a good name for it, honestly. So, last time we spoke, we didn't really have anything to talk about. But this time, I went to a movie, and while I was there was a tornado.
Did it enter the theater?
No. It did not disturb the movie-going experience, thank God, or I would have been upset. No, so I went to, Saturday night I went to the movies, right? And I saw Talk to Me, which, for those of you who don't know what that movie's about, it's kind of better to not know anything, but I'm going to spoil the premise real quick. So, essentially, a bunch of kids get together for parties, but instead of, get high or get drunk or have sex, they hold hands with a dead medium and then let spirits enter their body for 60 seconds as a form of getting high, not even because it's scary, but because they like the feeling.
Do they start by doing that? Like they're smoking, they're drinking, and then someone's like, "Hey, this isn't enough for me."
Yeah.
And then
who want to get possessed? Yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's a very scary movie. It was very, very good. But anyway, so I got out of the theater, right? And my girlfriend's got 4 texts, right? Exactly 4 people who care about us.
4 people.
4 texts.
I wasn't one of them.
They're like, "Hey, there was a tornado in your neighborhood. Are you all right?" And we're like, what are you talking about? Yeah, no, check the news. And it's a tornado touchdown in my town, right? And I'm not in a tornado alley, right? I'm not in a place where tornadoes happen. So this is this is out of the ordinary.
You're in
right?
Connecticut. Yeah,
you know what I
we
mean?
don't get tornadoes around here.
This is a flood in the Sahara Desert. It's weird shit. So we get in the car and we haul ass and we're keep your ass peeled for trees in the road and shit like that. And we see nothing. We see absolutely nothing, bro. We get all the way home. We see exactly one branch in the road, a singular branch, and a news van parked in front of it doing a live from the scene thing too. It's they also managed to find the one branch that fell in the road. Middest tornado in history.
Was it
a stage .001 tornado?
Just barely enough to qualify?
Yeah, the floaties in my pool were still in my pool. It didn't even register. It's I was all scared for nothing. You know what I mean? And
you survived.
Yeah, no, for real. So it's just the next time I see somebody bitch, oh, this tornado, it's I've been through one, okay? They're not even that big a deal. Oh no, there's a breeze when we were Young Fest. Fuck you. Wind ain't even that scary. Not as scary as shaking hands with a dead medium and letting a spirit possess your body, bro. That shit goes south quick.
And you're saying movie of the year?
Is that the best movie I've seen this year? It might actually be the case. Yeah, I think I'm pretty comfortable saying that. 100%.
I didn't finish it. I've been watching it in parts, but
okay.
Marcel the Shell with shoes on, dude.
Could you not finish it because you're too sad?
It goes nuts. Yeah, it's a little sad. And there were definitely parts where I was just I'm going to quit watching for an hour. Not because I was tearing up or anything, but I don't need to see a shell
But you were
sad.
Scared of tearing up, right? You didn't want to reach the point of tearing up.
Exactly. But no, fucking great. It's half stop motion and it's just neat. Just super cool.
So like artistically, you appreciate it,
Yeah.
right, and emotionally.
Definitely an A24 movie, and that's what Talk to Me is too. Is that A24?
All good movies are A24 movies. That's just a fact. That's just a fact at this point. You also reminded me of something else. I finally finished Stranger Things season 4. And let me just say this.
Just 2 years later.
Yes. But right in time for season 5. Eddie is probably more important to the culture than Metallica will ever be. I'm just going to say it right now. Like, my guy is a true hero. You know what I mean? Like, he played riffs to save people, not just like because it was fun. You know what I mean? Like, he gave his life for metal and friendship.
Hey,
right?
whoa,
all things Metallica has never done.
Yay, spoilers.
Is that a spoiler? Is it 2 years, you said?
It's probably been a year.
I knew what was going to happen when I watched it. Like, I was watching that season, and I was like, I know how this ends, right?
I think they left it open-ended.
Okay, well, there's some other open-ended things that happen, too, which, because of those things, Eddie might not actually be dead. Reverse spoiler. Anyways. Oh, wait, did you do anything else besides watch Marcel the Shell in bits and pieces? No?
Nah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay. As always, every link you need is in the description of this episode, including our socials, playlist, merch, and Discord. Subscribe to us on YouTube at SOTS Podcast YT and leave a thumbs up if you're watching the video version of the show. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, please leave 5 stars. And if you want to support the show, consider becoming a patron for early access, stickers, Discord benefits, producer credits on our video content, and the ability to ask questions on the weekly show. Scroll. Sierra asks, you're a record label that just signed a new up-and-coming metalcore band. What token music video do you start them off with?
What are the options? Let's actually like lay them out.
List the options, okay.
Token, right?
Right.
So
Warehouse.
desert,
Cathedral.
forest.
You find out that the vocalist is the person they've been burying in the graveyard the whole time by the end of the music video. That's
Ocean.
actually my choice, by the way, because I would like to get that one out of the fucking way so that I don't have to see it later when the band is really writing bangers. You know what I mean?
I think that like initially I would say torrential rainfall. Like just you're inside of a warehouse, but somehow like the roof is fucked and it's just pouring rain and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But upon further consideration, hear me out. Black and white. Not like not that there is no color in the video, but it's like white background strictly. Everyone's dressed in black. Maybe we got some white guitars.
We literally just got that video from Texas in July, which is so funny.
Exactly.
Like we literally just got that from a metalcore band.
Timeless.
This shit never
and
ends.
it's probably Texas in July's best video.
It's, you know what, I've never actually seen any other Texas in July video, so we're going to go ahead and say it is. All right, so I'm going dead the whole time. You're going torrential downpour.
No. I'm going
what?
black and white.
You're going, oh, right, you're going black and white.
Black on white.
Alex asks, if you could time travel a band that currently has 3 albums or less and drop them off in a time where Rise, Sumerian, or Fearless Records were all starting out, what band would have the potential to be a major heavyweight titan today? All right, so we're going back in time. We're going back to the year
and we're taking a band with us.
2008. We're taking a band with us, but they can't have more than 3 albums. They gotta have less than 3 albums. 3 albums or less.
3 albums or less.
All right, 3 albums or less. Hot new upcoming band. We gotta take them back in time, but they gotta be right. You know what I mean? Like you can't just be like this band is good. It's like they gotta be the right flavor for that generation. Otherwise, they're just gonna get lost.
Yep. This is actually a difficult question.
It's a really difficult question, but I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get the right answer to this.
You're essentially shaping music to come.
Right, but because I feel like the fucking thing is that like I would want to take a band that I know would succeed in that generation. Like, so it's almost like who's a fucking throwback? Like I would look at someone like Across the White Water Tower, which is pretty much just writing Attack songs currently, and be like.
Let's just push you back a little bit.
Right, I'm gonna put you in the generation where you would be most successful, or like look at like Dark Divine writing like Motionless in White and Ice Nine Kill songs.
Yeah,
it'd be like
that one's there
right.
too. Dark Divine might be the best answer here.
You think a band like a Void would have succeeded back in like 2008?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if like self-awareness was the move back then.
You don't think bands were self-aware back then?
No.
Yeah, that's fair. No, you're probably right. That is fair.
This is a hard question.
Okay.
I think it's a hard question.
I feel like we gave some answers.
Yeah, Dark Divine, I think, is the best one. Maybe,
yeah.
Dark Divine.
Okay.
Dark Divine.
Miles asks, just a random thought. If a band offers VIP tickets, what are 2 to 3 things that should be included? A meal.
Access to the
think.
RV bathroom.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yep.
Like a private bathroom?
Yeah.
For the entirety of the show, too. Not just like
Exactly.
pre-show.
Yeah. In and out whenever you want.
Right.
But just the bathroom.
A hot meal.
A hot meal.
Yep.
You know what? Honestly, I think VIP parties should be they should be parties, right? Like
Pizza should be a
it's
given.
pizza
is what
party.
You're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there were like some bands
Drinks?
that did this. Probably not.
Okay. Open bar?
Open bar. Yes, sure.
All right, so we're doing open bar.
It should honestly
Pizzas
it's
and
pizza
bathroom use.
or it's like a
Bathroom pass.
barbecue.
I don't think I will ever in my whole life do a VIP. I just like I can't. I don't know what it like. It's something in me where it's just like I can't be bothered.
I could
show up for a show.
Certainly see myself buying VIP.
Yeah.
Strictly just so I could get a good spot and stick with it all night.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. So like
you
let's
let me
say
into
you
that
want
venue early, and I'm
barrier.
gonna go find my spot, and I'm gonna stay there.
That's a fair point. They don't make you like go back outside and wait in line, do they? Do you get to hang out inside the whole time?
Some do.
I have like absolutely zero. Like I don't know what happens at VIPs. Like
We need a VIP field reporter.
I think you have to sign an NDA. Like I don't think anyone's ever
I
been able to
don't think
say,
you
yeah, no one knows what happens at VIP parties. Like people just come out and they're like, yeah, it was fucking awesome. It's like, sorry, I can't talk about it. But
Recently I saw like a little bit of discourse around VIP photos and
fucking
what like
discourse,
you're
bro.
supposed to do. And of course it came from Motionless in White's camp. Or their fan base rather.
Sure.
And someone was like, oh, I definitely screwed up like the flow of this VIP photo because I wanted to stand next to the drummer. And then Chris jumped into the comments and he was like, nah, do whatever you want up there. And I was thinking, you know what? I would buy VIP so that I could get a photo of just me by myself in front of that banner. But I would have the band stand out of frame.
It's a fun thought. Very fun thought. Disrespectful
It's
in
my
a lot
money.
of ways. Too many people in this scene have main character syndrome where they think something they did was relevant or important or significant in any way. And then very quickly you find out that the band was like, what?
Right.
I thought we just took a picture. What are you talking about? Evan asks, are you going to see Imminence in December? And if so, will I see you again? The answer to that is yes. For those who don't know, Imminence announced their first North American dates and sold out every fucking one of them within like a few days and upgraded all of their venues, which is huge for a band like that.
I think it was like 6 or 7 dates total. You had like a Canada date or 2. I want to say like Toronto was maybe in there.
Yeah, Massachusetts, New York, the Givens, New Jersey maybe,
Yeah, well, maybe not New Jersey.
I would just think that would be like relatively close to like you're hitting big cities. You know what I mean?
It is all sold out, but you at home have an opportunity to still go to the show.
Yeah, because now it's unsold out.
Yeah, they're announcing that they're upgrading venues, which at least like specific to us, Worcester Palladium is where they're playing New England, and I can't remember a single time the Palladium upstairs has ever upgraded a show downstairs.
Yeah, I can't remember either. I know it has to have happened, but I can't remember. But it's still cool to say.
It's nuts.
Hype. Super fucking
Imminence, like one of those bands where I'm a little surprised they have that amount of draw. And don't get me wrong, like they've been making us wait a while for these dates.
I just feel like every show sells out now. Like I know that's fucking crazy to say, but I just feel like so many shows in the scene right now are just like, it's just, there's like a boom.
A lot of them do.
The late roaring 20s.
Certainly in the major cities, it feels that way. Like if you've got a show coming to like New York, you need those tickets or else it's going to
buy them immediately or you're
going to
fucked.
Sell out. But yeah, no, we're going to Imminence. I'm really excited about that. Been listening to that new single like nonstop, or it's singles, right? It was 2.
Yeah, because they put out back-to-back singles, right?
But it's like kind of like a whole like
they flow together for sure. Final question, Marcos Eric asked, do you know which band you have seen live the most times? We've played this game a few times, but it's always like it's some combination of like Ice Nine Kills, Motionless in White, Fit for a King,
Bless the Fall,
Bless,
Like Moths is certainly up
Like
there.
Moths is up there.
You probably have a dark horse in someone like Memphis Mayfire, who I feel
Always.
like we've certainly like. There was a 3-year stretch where Memphis was on every tour, and we went to all those tours.
Yep.
And we certainly like just buffed those numbers up a lot. I think I want to say it's Motionless in White definitively.
So today's the 5-year anniversary since Warped Tour was murdered, and that was where we got most of our like, you know, numbers in,
Yeah.
right? Like that's where I saw Memphis or Bless
Yes.
or Motionless every fucking summer.
Ice Nine Kills towards the end, we
Yeah.
certainly racked up a number of times, especially because at some point we started doing double warps. Like we went to like the Massachusetts and then the Connecticut date.
Mm-hmm. 2 Warped, 2 Furious.
Just because
I
they were
remember
like
those.
2 weeks apart, and it was like, well, fuck yeah! Like 2 weeks from now, I'll be ready again.
If they bring Warp back, I'm committed to doing that all over again.
Oh,
by the way.
100%.
Back-to-back days.
Yeah.
The Breakdown.
We checked out some albums this week.
The Maine, the self-titled album by a band called The Maine.
Strung out on the phone, the tripping dial tones. I'm dancing all alone. I'd rather be at home. So I got high, but it's wearing off. I got holes in my camouflage. Can't recognize it's not from another. And I hate goodbyes, but I'm not above 'em.
This is the Phoenix, Arizona Outfit's 9th studio album, released August 1st via Photo Finish /8123 Records. The Maine consists of 10 tracks, clocks in at around 36 minutes, and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2021's XOXO From Love and Anxiety in Real Time LP. 8/1/23.
Right.
You have to think back all those years that, man, how lucky were they that the parking garage that they used to like hang out at and now have like annual fests at was 8123. It
Extremely
was called
convenient.
8123 and not fucking 1387 or some shit. Like you would have never been able to make
11001210.
exactly. Like now you can release an album on this. You can celebrate a day once a century.
The band
together.
essentially had to live long enough to see this day. That's it. From here
Yeah.
on out, they can do whatever they want. They can break up. Doesn't matter.
They're playing with
They-
house money now.
Right, exactly. They had to make it to this singular date so they could drop a self-titled album.
Man, as soon as I realized, like, okay, well, why the fuck are we releasing it on like a Tuesday?
Yeah.
Oh, 8/1/23. That adds up. I wonder how long it took the band to realize that this date was coming up, like officially, and then they had to plan stuff around it. Like they had
I
to
bet you
do the
they've known.
8/1/23
I bet you they've known their whole
fest.
lives. They've known their
They
whole
did.
lives that 8123 was
It's
coming.
been circled on every calendar.
Mm-hmm. They were well aware.
It's really neat that it
Worked out in that way.
It worked out that way. The band was able to release an album on that day. And what do we think about it?
Before we dive into that, how much do you remember of XOXO Love and Anxiety?
Not much.
Yeah,
and
that one did not stick with me.
So Sticky,
Sticky Stock.
the intro song, like the first single, it's honestly one of my favorite tracks by this band.
Yeah.
And then I try to remember the rest of XOXO.
Exactly.
And I can. And honestly, that was how I was going to start my part of the review, is by saying that I think this is a marked improvement and a return to form for this band.
100%.
After what was a fine album, but an ultimately forgettable one in XOXO.
Yep.
This is a remarkably refreshing album from the Maine. Like we're right back at it again.
I'm 100% in agreement with you. I had a thoroughly phenomenal time listening to this all week.
And by like 4 tracks in, I realized it was better than the last album too. It didn't even like dawn on me by the end of the album. It was early on that I was like, oh, this is much better.
Why? What stuck out to you?
I don't know. It's just this it feels so much more lively and so
It
much more.
certainly feels like a different band than the one we left off with. Like their presentation just feels a little different, and I think a really refreshing way, because I think XOXO felt like a little bit of running it back for the Maine, and maybe that is why that album did not stick with us, and then this just feels fresh by comparison.
I think that's accurate.
The things that pop out to me, first and foremost, are the vocal delivery, which I find to be very snappy, and the way that John bounces from like melody to melody with like ease is just it's something that I don't think I've ever really appreciated enough. Specifically, John's vocal style. I think it's something I've always taken for granted, and I think it's potentially stands out more on this album than it has in the past to me, where I feel like I've always really connected with the Maine emotionally, for what they're saying and how they you know how they communicate those feelings, but I don't think I've ever very specifically thought John as a vocalist really stood out up until this particular album, where I think he really shines.
Yeah, this is like a vocal showcase on this record that makes me want to hear more of John outside of them. Like, I'm sitting here like, man, why can't I think of any time that like John is featured on like another artist's work? And like it was one of those instances where I'm sitting
Funny
there,
enough, it did happen this year.
who?
Weathers, new Sumerian project.
Yes, yeah, no.
But you're right, it is a rarity. The only other occurrence that I can think of right off the top of my head would be John the Ghost, which was his solo project.
And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, you know what? Bring Me's got to release Fuck 2. Instead of the guy from You Me at 6 this time around, we bring in John.
Seeing the Maine
Like-
and Bring Me the Horizon team up would be fascinating.
Right.
Definitely out of left field. I thought that overall this album was very deeply romantic, and that like it carries like a real affection for the subjects of the individual tracks. And it resonated very deeply for me in a way that like I feel like we really skip. I honestly feel like the album before XOXO really connected with me on a similar way, and then I almost completely skip over XOXO. And
You
then have
Are
that-
Okay.
Yes, that's what it was
yeah.
called, right? That's precisely right. And I feel like I've developed that same connection to this album. Like, I feel like they both really excel at just like that emotional connection, right?
Yeah,
Between like listener and band.
This one almost feels like a spiritual successor to that album, which of all the
Well,
main
still feeling
albums,
very different.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's mostly different. I think that like it's definitely got the same energy to it,
You Are
a
Okay
similar tone.
was tragic. It was very, I don't know, I remember it being like sad and uplifting at the same time. This feels very different. This feels like the Maine got like just like a little sexy, like just like a bit
There's a
sexy
couple
on this
songs
album.
on here, like,
and that wasn't in the last albums.
I feel like Leaving 5 qualifies. Certainly Spiraling, Thoughts I Have While Lying in Bed. It's definitely like a little sexy.
Yeah, it's a little sad. Like it's a little more, it's romantic in a different way, right?
Yeah.
I think this album has a real strong danceability to it that I also don't think existed maybe in the last couple albums the way I would have hoped for. Like, try not to shake your hips to Leaving 5. Literally impossible.
Bro, try not to fucking shake your head, like headbang to shame or blame, rather.
So you're saying this has range.
It has range.
Like there's dance ability, but then
Yeah.
there's also headbang ability.
Yeah.
Which are two completely different things. I think this album is just a really good opportunity overall to sing along to, dance along to, feel along to. It really has this feeling of a summer album in that it plays both like on those long summer drives with the windows rolled down, but also those late summer nights. Like it just somehow like perfectly slots itself into the mood of the summer, no matter what time of day it is.
It's like one of the quintessential releases so far this year as far as windows down listening experience goes. Like that's got to be the first way that you tackle this album is like wait for a nice day, roll the windows down and just drive, right? Like you said though, like at some point sun goes down, you keep this album going through the night and it still translates.
Yeah, this has got soundtrack potential is what it is. It's just overall, it's a very powerful listening experience. There's just like, this band is able to make a really strong connection with its listener, and I really fucking felt that personally, right? Like, I felt like I was listening to an album that spoke to me a little bit.
Yeah, and they do, like, there's a couple of, like, very subtle things they do that help make that the case, where, like, there's a couple of, like, audio bits towards the beginning and end of songs, and it's not overdone by any means, but it's, like, a person asking how they should deliver a line and things like that. It's sort of muted, and it just makes it feel very real.
Yeah, it's personalized, right? And those small touches really go a long way. Some of the tracks that really stood out to me, The Mood I'm In is a fucking 10 out of 10 track. Just absolutely fucking phenomenal.
Man, there's a lot of 10 out of 10 tracks on this one.
Okay.
I think Funny How really stood out as well to me.
Okay.
It's like a little bit more of like a raw, more sobering thing.
Really
but-
like the title of that song too, because putting the question mark makes it very combative.
Well, initially you're thinking, like, is this a reference to, like, is it Goodfellas?
I believe it is
It's
Goodfellas.
like Funny
yes.
How.
Funny How. And in that song in particular, I think John really does a good job of, like, completely weaponizing his voice. And there's a line in there, even when I'm gone, I'll be with you on your birthdays and your worst days. That really stuck with me.
It's nuts. And every day in between, too. It's, oh my God, that lyric is, I don't know, there's a lot of great lyrics on this
It just feels like the man is kind of firing on all cylinders on this album. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't really feel like there's anywhere where they're dropping the ball in any sense of the word.
Yep. I think it was, like, Dose number 2 that has, like, a really cool, like, guitar solo and like, the bridge of that track that stood out. Everything stands out on this album. I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's no song is lost to the record. They all stand out in a very special way while also, like, remaining, like, cohesive to the entire listening experience. Like, tonally every song fits.
Yeah, it's just like it feels fine-tuned. You know what I mean? It just feels like the band really took their time with it and tried to make an incredibly perfect product. I think about you all the time. It's just like an ideal, like, kind of lovelorn type song. And it hits like a fucking gut punch. Overall, it's hard for me to pull any blemish from this album. I think maybe the closer Spiraling wasn't ideal for me. Like, I didn't love that track, so by nature of it closing the album, it kind of left with slightly a weaker punch than I would have hoped for.
I'm halfway there. I actually really like Spiraling. It's one of my favorite tracks on there.
Okay.
I agree that it's not the best choice of a closing track on the record, though. I think maybe you shift to Funny How, maybe even Cars and Caution Signs, which comes right before it. Shift that to the end. Maybe it closes on a better note. But I think Spiraling is a standout track for me personally.
Okay. Overall, I would probably hover around like a 4.5.
Yeah.
I think You Are Okay for me was like, it hit me at a point in my life where it was just like, me and the Maine were like, we just like, we crossed, you know what I mean? Like, we were speaking the same language, you know what I mean? And this is deathly close to feeling the same way. I think I just need a little more time with it to decide if I feel as strongly about it as I did that album.
Yeah. But again, like, one of the, like, drawing direct comparison between this record and the last one, I think one of the things I can certainly tell you is that I put XOXO down after like 4 or 5 listens, and I haven't picked it up since. I think I'm well on my way to cruising to like listen number 15 already on this one. Really happy with it. Don't see myself putting it down anytime soon. It is a quintessential summer record so far for the year, and I really just recommend it. Just base level.
Yeah, so we're definitely in alignment there, Marcus. What else did we check out?
Divine Inner Tension by Hail the Sun.
I embody every threat you feel within. 'Cause if I'm with you, then I'm with you till the end. But to break that bond means breaking something more.
This is the California Outfit's 6th studio album, arriving the 11th of August via Equal Vision Records. Divine Inner Tension consists of 12 tracks, clocks in at over 40 minutes, and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2021's New Age Filth LP. Sam, tell me what you remember about that one.
I remember loving it, actually. I remember sort of loving it on an island where it felt like I came in here at the end of the year and I softly pitched it to make like a top 20 and I got closed out.
Well, I mean, you say that like...
I mean, I didn't say it like you hated it. I just
me
mean
like such a villain.
Yeah, you were in that sense. In that particular day, you were the villain.
I remember enjoying New Age Filth. More so, like, if we're directly comparing artists this week, like, I remember enjoying that record more than the Maine's XOXO. As long as we're talking about, like, a band's last record.
Let's very directly compare the Maine and Hail the Sun, two very similar projects.
I probably spent more time with the New Age Filth, but it's also one of those records where I didn't really return much to it.
That's fair. No, I treated it like every album. I returned to it at the end of the year and not much since. But that doesn't really speak to the quality of an album so much the lack of my time. Marcus, a little bit of flavor here for the new record. It was produced by Chris Crummett, and Donovan Malero had this to say about it. This is the first album we've written that didn't come exclusively from a place of suffering or pain. Sadness, heartbreak, and nihilism all inspire, but during the pandemic there was a big shift, and this is more about retelling the story, retelling stories about everyday perceptions. Everything comes from within, so I thought that maybe I don't have to suffer to feel inspired. Which is a powerful feeling that I think translates a little bit to this album. Like, it translates a little bit to this album, but I wouldn't say that, like, the overall sensation I got from this is that it was uplifting. There is still, like... There's like, an anxiety that lives in every single, like, riff that Hail the Sun has.
Right.
That I don't think they can just shake by changing, like, the tone of, like, the songwriting.
Well, I think, like, there's a keyword in there.
Which is what?
It's exclusively. This is the first album we've written that didn't come exclusively from a place of suffering or pain.
Okay, I got you. So it came a little bit from there, but not exclusively from there. Right.
We still have a lot of pain and suffering on it, but it's not exclusively that.
Right, like we let a little light in this time around.
I like that that's a canon event for most bands that make it to like their sixth record, where it's just like
it's so fucking funny.
I'm almost running out of pain to write about, like.
Because we talked about this with Beartooth, like, just recently. It was like, hey, guys, actually, I'm not depressed.
Life hasn't been so bad in a while.
Right, precisely. And, sometimes it comes through in the songwriting, but not always. Okay. So that last album, pretty good. This album completely fucking obliterates it. Like, it banishes it right to the fucking shadow realm. Like, it might as well not even, like, this is like, we're starting fresh here. Like, this is the quintessential Hail the Sun album. Like, there's not even an argument to be had to the contrary.
Yeah,
this is defining.
This is a standout record in this band's discography for damn sure.
This sounds like a band with their back against the wall. Like, either they're gonna break out or they're fucking done. So they wrote the album of their goddamn career.
Sam, not only was rent due, but it was raised. It was raised and it was due.
Right, precisely.
And this band, there was a fork in the road. Like, do we get real jobs or not real jobs? Do we get like some blue collar jobs and get back to it and try to pay it off? Or do we write the best album of our lives and let the music speak for itself?
I'm so lost in this idea that being in a band is not like a real, it's so fucking funny. Do they get real jobs?
Do they get real jobs?
Do they fucking get their act together and like, thank fucking God they don't have to, right? Thank fucking God they don't have to.
Yeah.
So here's what this album does. All right, so let's talk about that tempo reel. Like earlier I mentioned that, like, listen, every riff is somehow anxiety inducing, and like low key, that's what I love about this. Like, the tempo is so frenetic, and it always moves at like a breakneck pace, and like you constantly feel like you're spiraling out of control, and that always somehow perfectly matches the subject matter and the emotional roller coaster that like the band is trying to deliver.
That like vibe and that tone is so inherent in this record that like it's how it starts it.
It's also like quintessential to like Hail the Sun. It's like when I close my eyes, I picture like this riff that's just like fucking going out of its goddamn mind, and then like a vocal delivery that just feels like it's on the brink of like completely falling apart.
That's what I mean. It's like this record just starts with that. Like, that's the first track. Like, it's the first like 20 seconds of this is just a really frenetic, anxiety-inducing riff and percussion, and then like Donovan's not even singing. He's just like letting out like feral screams in the background. It's like slightly muted before it all sort of comes into like that first verse, and it's a little bit more, you know, standard and
Cohesive,
all that. But yeah,
or coherent.
But like, man, they just like let it loose and immediately on this album.
Yeah, yeah. I think that Donovan Malero's penchant for like a dramatic vocal delivery alone pushes every single track on this album to above average status, right? So like when
we don't phone in any single.
we absolutely do
vocal
not phone in. Yeah. I think the quintessential example here would be The Story Writes Itself, which is just pure fucking theater in terms of the vocal delivery.
Yeah.
There are so many individual things that I loved about this record. The fluttering instrumental at the beginning of 60-minute session blocks is mesmerizing. Truly makes it a standout track. In My Dream, Into I Saw You Hanging is some of like the hardest shit I've heard all year.
It's very that specific part of the record. Those two tracks are very Circa Survive to me. Mm-hmm. It's just like I close my eyes and I can see like Anthony Green potentially delivering those vocals.
Which is so fucking funny because I remember reading the press release for this album and it was like, for fans of Circa Survive. And I'm like, man, Hail the Sun doesn't need a comparison like this. Like, they're their own thing.
Is that really there?
Yeah.
That's fun.
And then like now you saying it out loud, it's like, yeah, no, it is apt though. It is a fucking apt comparison.
Man, specifically like
with
the
this album.
last stuff they did. Mm-hmm. Not like, I mean, I guess earlier on too, but like that specific era of Cirque Survive, like a very relevant newer era of that band. But no, you're right. Like there's a ton of iconic songs on here. Is it Tithy? Track 9 on here.
Tithy.
T-I-T-H-E.
Let me say this. Can I say this real quick? From 1 to 9, from tracks 1 to 9.
Yes.
I think this album gets incrementally better and hits an absolute peak there.
It is like the craziest this band has ever sounded. Mm-hmm. It's the heaviest they've ever sounded, in my opinion. It's just a fucking another standout track.
I just mean like quality wise. I was like, oh my God, track 1 is so good. And then like track 2, I was like, God damn. And then track 3, I was like, what the fuck is happening?
I think track 4 for me might be a peak.
Okay. Which is the 60-minute session blocks.
Yes. Maladapted as well as some awesome lyrical bits. But yeah, like it does keep getting better and better. And then it doesn't lose you at the end, but like we've definitely shown all the cards by that point.
The band shifts, like very, very intentionally shifts on Feeble Words to like, hey, let's bring the energy back down to fucking like normal.
Well, we go to 100 and they have to go like, they almost have to like,
right. Where do you go from here?
You slam the brakes. And that doesn't really pull you out of the album by any means, but it is another good song. I think by the time the record ends, though, like I'm fully back on board.
Mm-hmm. I just like could not believe how impressed I was listening to this. It's just, to me, it feels like one of the best outings from a post-hardcore band all fucking year. One of the best albums that Hail the Sun has ever written. It's just sonically riveting from start to finish. And even though I do agree that, you know, to my point where I feel like we peak at 9 and then we sort of like, we almost like slowly come down for the last 3 tracks. I still don't think that dramatically, like I don't find that like it's dramatically detrimental to the overall experience. It's almost exactly like you said. You did it. Like, where do you go from here? Like, we've just got to like fucking calm down and kind of like sing ourselves off.
But yeah, no, I don't know. I think this is easily the best Hail the Sun album I've heard. It's probably got 12 of their best tracks on it. Some really great moments, and I can't recommend this one enough.
I found myself appreciating the writing style of Donovan Maleiro a lot more after having heard his solo album and then going into this album. Like, I feel like it's something that almost like I didn't realize how strong of a writer he was until I listened to that last album, and then like I appreciated it more listening to this record.
4.5.
I'm right there too. It's just like, I'm like, I think I need a little more time with it. This is potentially one of the best albums. It's like, I'm looking at it the same way I was looking at the Maine. I'm like, potentially one of the best albums of the year. Give me some more time with it. Let me feel it out a little more. I don't think it's like set in stone just yet. I don't know if it's necessarily like best album I've heard all year, but it is very, very strong.
Very good.
And Marcos, we listened to one last album.
Yeah. Reflections by Caskets.
When you think you're not enough, you don't fit in. When you feel like giving up, but now there's no one listening. Down in your bones, head in your heart. Get up and fight or you'll fall apart. So go and wear your heart upon your sleeve.
This is the Yorkshire Outfits sophomore album, arriving the 11th of August via Sharptone Records. Reflections consists of 10 tracks, clocks in just under 40 minutes, and is the much anticipated follow-up to 2021's Lost Souls LP. Man, it feels like Caskets have been around forever, but they really haven't.
They
We're
haven't.
going on maybe like year 6 or 7. We've had one EP to our name, one album, and now a second album. It's coming out real soon.
We're in the infancy of this band's career.
Yep. And it just keeps getting better and better. in my
This
opinion.
is a marked improvement from their last record, which I thought had some highs, but wasn't quite the breakout I would have hoped for. This is significantly closer to being that.
I was thinking of how I would describe that same feeling, and I think that like the best comparison I can make is I considered the first record to have like 3 wonderful songs, and let's say it was 10 tracks total, 7 okay songs.
Right.
It's like it was a good album. It was a fine debut, good outing.
I enjoyed it, but it wasn't
Definitely-
like explosive, like the kind of explosive debut I would have hoped for, right?
Yeah, but like exactly. It was a good debut record. Didn't break the world or anything like that.
This almost
This
operates more like a debut record, right? Like this is the coming out party.
I don't know if I fully agree with that
Okay.
statement. I think it's a coming out party, yes. It just happens to be the second album. And for me, this is a record where instead of being 3 wonderful songs, 7 good ones, it's just 10 wonderful songs. I look at every track on here and I adore every last one of them. I think that all of them have just enough going for them that they're all unique in their own right. So I don't man, one small critique about this band is that I think that a lot of their song titles could improve. So for example, like you have Hate Me and Too Late and Believe, and to me those songs are just very like run-of-the-mill metalcore track titles.
I think that this band does one of those things that I will criticize them for, because I criticize a lot of bands for it, where there is a little bit of generality to not only the song
Some of
naming
the
convention, but also like the
lyrically, yeah.
lyrics, right?
But like
Hate Me is a song about hate me, right? You know, like too late. Yeah, you're too late. Like we're more than misery. There's a better way out. Like everything is very like blunt and also sort of easily applicable over a broad swath of individuals, so that, and this is kind of where they also excel. There's a lot to relate to in all the songs because they're kind of structured in a way that they're general enough where you could apply them to your own personal experience, no matter what it is, right?
and that's where I was going with it, is like, even though they have some of these odds stacked against them, from like you know, they're not super unique in their own right.
Right.
I still think that this band excels past those things.
Yeah, almost like excels in spite of themselves in some
Yeah.
instances. I think what they're exemplary at doing is sort of eliciting very strong emotions from me, right? Like I think the vast majority of which the vast majority of this song sort of like touch the soul a little bit, right? And I think again a piece of that is that they're so easily able to take them and wrap them around in personalized individual experience you might have had, right?
Yeah.
But I think that more than not, what this band does is not just that they feel relatable, but they feel like they are a force of positivity. So it's meant to not just feel like you can connect with them, but it's uplifting at the same time. And I think that's like what sort of like pushes them over.
Yeah, a real life example of that. Like you find yourself screaming along the lyrics to some of these tracks. More Than Misery is a great example. Like it's just an overwhelmingly like positive song. There's more to life than misery or whatever, right? So the choruses on each of these tracks are so anthemic that you can't help but scream along. And then you also factor in like the positive vibes to a lot of these tracks. Again, emotional tracks, but like there's a great message overall to many of them. It just, I don't know, it's part of what makes Caskets, right?
Right. And
Those
like,
things.
it's easy to sing along to songs that have such strong hooks, right? And that's another thing that this band excels at, is just when it comes to like the pop aspect of their sort of like pop meets post-rock style, like they really absolutely knock it out of the park when it comes to their choruses. So you get to something like By the Sound and you cannot help but scream along to it, right?
We say anthemic and we mean it. Like these are fucking huge choruses.
I've always felt like Caskets sort of model themselves as being a modern day Sleeping with Sirens, where they could very much see themselves, playing like, stadium sized crowds with very familiar, very catchy songs that are relatable. It's one of those things where it's like they have a very massive crossover appeal, right? And in some ways that is a detriment to me personally, but in other ways it is what makes them so good at what they do, right? Yeah. I think the vocals overall are just serene, and combined with those very uplifting instrumentals, it's like a really strong tag team between the two of them. Yeah. They just match perfectly.
This album actually had a little bit of wholesome background to it.
Which is what exactly?
When Matt was describing like how this album came to be and what
Matt the vocalist,
right? What like the writing experience was overall, it was just very wholesome to me. It was like, yeah, well, we just got to know each other a lot better, and like musically and personally, and like how to get each other going, or just how others want to be treated and things like that. And it was just like I'm sitting there like, man, these guys just grew closer over the years, and suddenly they're firing on all cylinders more because they have that stronger connection. And it was just a really nice explanation as to why they sound so much better on this record.
Like the rare instance where a band locked themselves in a cabin for 3 months and left actually liking each other a little bit more and not hating one another, right? And that translates. I think that each track kind of contains these little affirmations of hope that I think transform each individual ballad into a very powerful anthem, right?
Yeah.
And I kept coming back to that word. It just, anthem in particular felt like it really described each individual song very accurately, right? Like everything was an individual anthem for a specific feeling, right? Mm-hmm. I think that By the Sound and Better Way Out are absurdly massive, and really reinforce this band's trajectory as, headliners and recognizable faces in the scene.
They did a really good job selecting singles for this one.
Agree completely, yeah.
Because like you mentioned those two, and then I look at Guiding Light, which was the first single off of here, and I'm like, man, that's their best and biggest song to me. Like
they
just
knew.
Bar none. And then same with Mortal, what was the song with Telly on it? Sorry, More Than Misery.
Yeah.
The Telly feature as well. Like Telly really came in and knocked that out of the park, because Telly could have gotten really lost in that track if it was just singing.
Right.
Because I think that Matt and Telly actually have sort of similar voices.
Yeah, they almost exist in the same plane, those two, right? Which is part of the reason why Telly almost makes so much sense as an inclusion in this album.
Well, but you bring him in and you have him just scream like the bridge of this track, and it just makes that guest vocal hit that much harder.
Smart choice.
Totally. But that's another great example for just a really strong single choice.
And then the last single there that I remember was Better Way Out, which I think is just like, now you're balancing the scale of like the variety that you want to give people of what's on this album, right?
And there is certainly variety on here as well, because there's like a very dancey track at some point too. It's like track 4.
It's a soft variety, right? You know what I mean? Where it's like
definitely
everything
enough.
Definitely feels at home with one another on this album, right? There's no dramatic swings. I remember that last record had a song that was like, it was something like Ladders, and it was very sad. It was one of my favorites on the whole record, and that one felt dramatically different than everything else that had come before it. I don't think this quite has that, but I will say there's like a consistency to the quality, and like little changes here in the and there in the style help differentiate the tracks from one another. But like I said, it doesn't dive too far into like one end or another of the stylistic spectrum. I think maybe Hate Me stuck out the most as being the most stylistically different overall, but even that is like a soft stylistically different.
Yeah, I mean, that one's definitely got like a bit of a Sirius XM energy to it, but I think it works.
I think this band absolutely abuses those little orchestral sonic touches, and it really makes songs, like it really makes you feel songs in the pit of your stomach, right? So it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, all these choices make a lot of sense for this band and what they're trying to do on this album.
Yep. A lot of those like decisions to like those orchestral moments and like those flourishes, they sort of pack in towards the back half of songs too, and it makes you really long to hear them again. So like you find yourself just putting that song on repeat. I honestly think this is one of the best albums I've heard all year long. That's kind of where I'm at with this. Not from like this is an album you must like this is a conceptual
You're just saying like
masterpiece.
quality wise,
We're 10 out of 10 track wise. There's not a single song on here I don't love. I think they're all fantastic. I think Caskets are they've never sounded better. I think they are by far at the top of their game, and I was a little underwhelmed again by Lost Soul, so this is a big bounce back for me. Love this album. I adore it.
Okay, so I landed at like a 4 out of 5 for this.
I'm at a 4.5. I'm not at a 5.
Okay.
Because again, like I do look at this one and I'm like, this could have been 2 EPs, really. Like there's nothing that I think makes this an album. Like there's no like
cohesive story,
like
conceptual subject matter,
things together.
Right? No through line.
I think at face value, it's just 10 really good songs that happen to be on an album together. Like you could have taken 2 songs from the last one and swapped them in here, and it's still essentially the same record. I just think that maybe the quality would have dipped because those 2 songs would have been written slightly more poorly than the songs on this one are.
Right, and I sort of review everything based on my own personal experience, and this is an album that I thoroughly enjoyed listening to, but have nitpicks here and there where I feel like, there are certain things that really speak to me that I think this band sort of like circumvents in ways that like I'd like to hear maybe a little bit more of a personal touch in their next album. I want to know a little bit more, like I feel like Caskets maybe has some opportunity to maybe make their albums feel a little more personal in the future, maybe more strongly differentiate themselves from other bands in the scene.
I don't disagree.
There are little
with any
things
of
like that.
Yeah.
Like I 100% say, hey, this is a great, enjoyable album. Go check it out. But I think there are ways that Caskets can make an even better album in the future.
Totally agree.
The news.
In the news this week, Marcos, we are so back. We are so fucking back. It was over. Now we are back.
How long was it over? How long has it been since we were back?
Okay, so it was over right up until... Do you remember when MGK announced his pop punk album? It was over until that very day, and that's when we started to come back. But now we're officially fucking back. And I'm pulling something up on my phone right now. Like,
Okay.
Excuse me, but it's going to be relevant to this next section. So... Pierce the Veil's Emergency Contact is the #1 alternative song in the country, right?
Sleep on the couch while you're passed out in the back. Just want you to be my emergency contact.
The song reached the...
I feel like this came out of nowhere.
It did come out of fucking nowhere. It did. It did. Absolutely it did, because the song reached the top spot after 28 weeks on the chart, right? The last time Pierce the Veil hit the alternative charts was with 2016 single Circles, which topped out at 31. Embarrassing. We were so fucking dead back then. It was so over. King for a Day did reach #1 on the hard rock streaming charts in August of 2022, thanks to, you guessed it, TikTok, right? So it's like a little bit of a roller coaster here. It was like, hey, Pierce the Veil actually, in terms of popularity, they peaked in 2016 with Circles, had an insane, unprecedented renaissance because of TikTok, and now are actually fucking back on top. We're so back with Emergency Contact at #1.
So this is like that slow grind. 28 weeks grinding it out to finally be #1.
Right.
That's a considerable amount of time, and I'm glad that it's this song too, because Emergency Contact is one of the standouts from Jaws of Life.
It's the best song on Jaws of Life. Yes, that's correct.
And Like, I don't know. I love seeing in number one. That's such a good song.
It's for the, like, no matter what, it's even if the worst fucking least favorite song from what's called Jaws of Life made it to the top of the charts, it's still a win for the culture. You know what I mean? It's like, for the culture, we take the W. In the same way that we absorb all W's from MGK as wins for the culture, Pierce the Veil is, maybe one that people are a little more in line with, right? Because they feel much more like they came from the scene. Sure, right, whatever. But I thought it would be fun to see if you could name the other 9 songs in the top of the Billboard Top 10 alternative tracks.
The frustrating
I'll give
thing
you the
about
bands.
this-
Like, if you can name the bands, I'm gonna give it to you.
Can I guess one before you? Can I guess?
What do you mean? You can guess it
Let
whatever
me
you
guess
want right now.
a few times before you start giving me like some softballs. Okay.
Sure. How many can you get out of 9?
Is Werewolf featuring "Bring Me the Horizon" by Lil Uzi on there? It's
It's
not.
not. I don't know. Maybe it's not considered alternative, right? Maybe it's because I think it charted in like the top 100. Maybe they threw it under hard rock. You know what I mean?
This is what makes this super challenging.
It makes it hard because there are bands
everything
I would
I'm gonna
say
guess is hard rock.
But the fucked up thing is that looking at this, there are a bunch of bands here I would just call rock bands. So like it is little fuck shit like that.
Man, this is fucking hard.
Think big. Like think bands Pierce the Veil should not be charting over. Start there. Don't go other bands in the scene. Go bands who Pierce the Veil should not be
Really?
charting over. Yeah.
100 Gex?
Okay. 100. No, you're thinking too alternative right now. You need to reel it.
I'm
in.
too alternative.
Now you're too far in the
This
wrong
is so
direction.
hard
You're
to
too far in the wrong direction. I misled you with not rock bands on here. This is so many fucking rock bands. It's not even funny.
So many rock bands charting over bands.
Who would you
they shouldn't
who are
be.
bands that you feel like have been the face of alternative music for like
So
20
they're
years
somehow
now?
over Paramore?
Paramore is not actually on this list.
This is why it's not on there?
But Paramore is dead.
What? Okay.
I mean, they're
so
not. We'll talk about it in the next story how they're not dead, but they're not in the top 10 here.
Fallout Boy?
Fall Out Boy and their song Love from the Other Side rounds out the top 10.
It's number 10?
It's number 10. It fell this week in particular.
Jesus.
Yeah. Marcus is 1 for 9 right now.
Yeah, well, now I'm trying to think of like if TikTok has boosted any of these recent songs up.
I would say no.
How
I mean, there's
old?
one in here that you should have gotten already because it's been a fucking force of nature in our scene for a year. Like, what's that? What the song, bro? Who's the band in our scene and what's their song?
Bring Me.
No. Who's the band in our scene and what's their song?
Lorna?
Try one more time. Who is
Motionless.
that band? You're so fucking embarrassing right now. Who is that band?
It's Bring Me. I don't know
Who's
why
the
we're-
band on the tip of everyone's tongue in this
There's
scene
no
right
other
now? Who's the
band.
fastest
Fucking
rising
Bad
band?
Omens.
Thank you. And their song,
Death, Peace of Mind.
no, sir. This is
Artificial
embarrassing right
Suicide?
now. Are you fucking
Like a
with me right
villain?
now? Are you fucking with me? Or you're just fucking with me? Okay, you're fucking with me. All right, because I thought you were being serious right now.
Which song?
Just pretend. You
Just
fucking
pretend.
idiot. That's 2. That's 2 of the 9. I'm going to give you a couple that you're not going
Oh,
to get.
Sleep Token.
Sleep Token's not on here.
What? Fuck this. What is alternative?
I'm gonna give you a couple you're not gonna get because I don't think you're super familiar with the band. So so Bad Omens is at number 6, which is Pretend, right?
The Fall Off.
Number 4, Rescue Me by Dirty Heads, which I don't think we've ever talked about before. And number 7, Call Me What You Like by Lovejoy, which sounds vaguely familiar. Everybody else in here are artists that you're familiar with. Think the biggest rock bands of all time. Period.
The Rolling Stones.
You're fucking
the
killing me right
Beatles.
now. Am I literally just gonna have to list these for you?
Sure. Well, how the fuck am I supposed to get any of these?
I don't know because like this shouldn't.
Who do you
be
consider the
insanely-
biggest rock band in the world?
At number 2, with their track Rescued, Foo Fighters. At number
Whatever.
3, with their track Lost, Linkin Park.
Lost is charted?
Lost charted. At number
I'm a little
5,
surprised.
4 was Dirty Heads. At number 5, Stuck by 30 Seconds to Mars.
Okay, fuck you. Why would I expect
fuck me.
30
You
Seconds to
fuck me.
Mars to be charting in 2023.
Maybe fuck me. I told you the biggest bands from like the last 2 decades. That's who make these lists.
I
Generally,
don't even consider 30 Seconds to Mars one of the biggest bands
they're
from the
big.
last 2 decades.
We'll talk about it.
I know we'll talk
They're big.
about it, but like,
they're big.
For that reason, they're big. For no other reason are they big.
At number 7 was Lovejoy. At number 8 is In My Head by Mike Shinoda and Kaylee Morgue.
Yo, let's
Cool
fucking
song.
go. I
cool
love
song,
that song,
right?
yeah.
This is an interesting one that was completely unexpected. So we said number 10 was Fall Out Boy, right? But number 9, Calm Down by All Time Low.
Really?
Did not expect to see that. So I feel like that album came and went faster than any record in history.
Yeah. Full transparency, I listened to it. I don't remember any songs sticking out.
That would have been, I guess, the go-ahead single, right? Because they released it as a single. But obviously, All Time Low has not been on the tip of anyone's tongue in a positive way lately.
No.
So I was surprised to see them charting in the top 10.
Man.
Fascinating list, though, right? To see like a lot of rock bands, but then see like Pierce the Veil absolutely fucking demolish them.
Foo Fighters at 2 is nuts with Pierce the Veil. Like, knowing Pierce the Veil is right above
Pierce the
them.
Veil charted over Foo Fighters and Linkin Park,
And
bro.
Fall Out Boy.
Bad Omens on their fucking tail, right? Like that could be
Has Bad Omens not taken one yet?
I don't think so. I don't
Oh,
think so.
Pierce the
We
Veil,
would
your
have heard
days are
about it.
numbered.
We would have heard about it.
Because now the Bad
You
Omens
put- you-
fandom is aware.
You put Pierce on Death Watch right now?
Yeah, they're on Death Watch, dude.
You put them on. They're Deadpool right now.
We're at 1 for 3 more weeks until the Bad Omens fandom catches up, and it's over.
Once the Cole finds out about this shit, it's over.
Bad Omens about to hit the road next month again, and it's over.
This is great news for Pierce the Veil, who just announced a headlining tour, by the way, to like fucking ride that wave. Mm-hmm. And then to help
good-ass
get
tour.
Dayseeker to that top 10 right behind him. Paramore is the 32nd most streamed band on Spotify, and After Laughter has surpassed 1 billion streams.
Just let me cry a little bit longer. I ain't gonna smile if I don't want to.
It's a little crazy.
That this band used to be a scene band.
Yeah, that too. But like, this is such a remarkable accomplishment. Like, right, a full album has had 1 billion streams.
Huge.
And then
right?
knowing you can go to an artist like Taylor Swift's page and her top 5 are just songs that are like have crossed 2 billion, 3 billion streams on Spotify alone.
You're
Like, I'm
saying
not
by
trying
virtue
to,
of
like-
comparison,
right.
it's so funny looking at the accomplishments of a band in the scene and then looking at Taylor Swift and being like, her least streamed song is like 4.5 billion.
Like, that's how I still know that Paramore has scene roots.
Right, and obviously the Taylor Swift comparison brought in here real quick because Paramore's going to be supporting them in the UK EU next year on the Eras Tour, which is infinite and forever ongoing, according to Taylor Swift, who announced even more dates for North America next year, too.
I love that when you're an artist of that size, when you announce a date for a city, it's not just one night, it's not 2 nights.
Right.
It's actually not 3 nights, but it's typically 4 or 5 nights.
Right, you're doing like a week stay. You're doing like a Vegas
It's
stay.
nuts.
You imagine if bands started doing that shit for us? Could you imagine? Can you imagine next Pierce the Veil tour was like we're playing 3 nights
What
in
is
Boston?
What is crazy is that we are getting to that point.
You think we're getting to that point? Because like Fall Out Boy just came here and they only played 1 night, so it's like even the biggest of the biggest aren't doing that right now.
But
Who's going to be bigger than Fall Out Boy?
at a different scale, I think we're getting to that level. Like if Bad Omens said, "Hey, I want to play the fucking House of Blues in Florida for a week," House of Blues ain't saying no, and we're selling out every date.
Do you think the difference is that you have to reach the point where you're playing the biggest stadium in order to like all of the bands in our scene have to get to the point where they're playing a football stadium and then they can start playing multiple nights, right?
Sure, maybe it's that.
In theory, like theoretically, right?
This is
Absolutely
huge.
massive. 32nd most stream. They knocked Slipknot out of the top 32,
Fuck yes.
which is the funniest fucking thing in the whole world.
Why is 32 like an important like Spotify thing? Like
I don't know that it's like particularly important. I don't know if like Spotify has like a list that like tops out at 32, so like Paramore's right at the very bottom.
Yeah.
Like they've just made the cut. But this is how it was reported.
Got it. 32 is fucking huge. 32nd most streamed artist in the world right now, because we're not considering like Apple or Tidal or anything.
What can Slipknot do to get back into the top 32 and knock Paramore? Do they even stand a chance anymore, or is Paramore just like forever embarrassed Slipknot out of contention?
I think that Slipknot right now is going to be comfortably sitting outside of the top 32.
This is a 7 seed knocking the 1st seed right out of the fucking like
so true.
contention. Slipknot was probably sitting pretty. Slipknot hasn't tried in like 8 years because they didn't think they had to. You know what I mean? And then Paramore comes around with a fucking banger of an album, right? A couple massive tours, and they're like, thank you, goodbye.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like I don't see Paramore going anywhere anytime soon.
I don't see Paramore growing. I only see Paramore growing. I feel like Paramore's going to be quick with that next album. I'm telling you, we're getting the Taylor Swift tour, and then boom, back in the studio.
Man, I don't know. I like Paramore's the one band I would never trust that out of. Like I could almost see Paramore saying like 10 years. 10-year feels like a good wait time between this album and the next one.
I think you're wrong. I think we're riding this wave because I feel like there was a long wait time between Paramore albums, specifically because Haley went and did a couple solo records, right? COVID, pandemic, that stuff. So I think this band is like alive with the fucking glory of love right now. And Marco, speaking about how back we are, we talk about Pierce the Veil reaching number 1. We talk about Paramore reaching number 32. Let's talk about Knocked Loose joining 30 Seconds to Mars on stage, specifically Brian Garris, for their performance of The Kill last night at Lollapalooza.
Make some noise, come Brian from Knocked Loose.
Insane.
Absolutely fucking unprecedented. There's not even a point of comparison for this. There's never been something this big that's ever happened in the history of this scene.
The only thing here is that like I love that the common theme with Knocked Loose is they just always show up where they're not supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Like Coachella, they're there. The on stage with 30 Seconds to Mars, for some reason they're also there.
Right. 100%. This is one of those cases where it's like this is getting called off the bench during the All-Star game. The All-Star game. Like this is literally like this is peak. Like I don't know how you get bigger than this, right? Like this is one of the biggest moments sort of like overall for the culture, but like very specifically for like Knocked Loose as a project. Massive. And
specific to 30 Seconds to Mars, like you're not getting called out for some bum ass track.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because they've got those.
You imagine you get called out for Stuck?
Yeah, it's like
whatever that was called.
Who cares?
Did Stuck even get played that night?
But you get called out for fucking The Kill, the song everyone is going to watch this band perform. Like that's the reason they're all in that crowd.
Right. And then like, who's this little pink-haired fuck? And like Jared Leto's like, this is my boy in Knocked Loose. Take it away. Right? Which is just like insane. Like, it's just an insane fucking like sequence of events. Like, it's just like, it's crazy.
It's an insane clip also because the feature is so short.
How do bands combat this, right? Because 30 Seconds to Mars have pulled a G move unlike any G move in history, right? So it's like Fall Out Boy, have they even asked Ollie Sykes to come perform a song with them this whole fucking tour?
That's a good point. I haven't
That's
seen
a good point, right?
Like that.
Right.
How do other bands like what's the how do they fight back?
Foo Fighters brings Will Ramos on, obviously.
I was thinking
during their
the
performance,
exact
like
same
right because that
thing.
right because you go like popular rock band, extremely popular like underground project, like who can Noah Sebastian join on stage, right? Like this kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like Electric Callboy joins like Mainskin or something. You know what I mean? Like those are the levels of like disparity that we have to like bring close together.
Where does Vessel show up?
Oh, that's a Ghost maybe like a Ghost
that
and like
be
Vessel,
fun.
right? That almost feels like it's a bigger boon to like I know Ghost is big, but like I still don't think Ghost has like the household name of I would be like Metallica, Spencer Sharness. You know what I mean? Like they're doing that tour right now.
That should
right?
also be happening,
right? I'm thinking like Coldplay, Sam Carter from Architects. This is the kind of thing I'm thinking right now. You know what I mean? It's like from now on, like if I go to a festival and the 1975 is playing, do they bring out, Vessel from Sleep Token? Like what can we do now to match this energy moving forward?
Or do all of them just go with the flow and it's Brian Garris every time?
Brian Garris exclusively is doing all these collaborations across the board, right? I mean, I guess we did have like Ed Sheeran and like Bring Me the Horizon, which feels a little bit like something similar, right? Because they performed together during that like music award show, whatever the British Grammys. Marco, speaking about how fucking back we are, the Story so far returned with their new single Big Blind, their first in 5 whole fucking years. And this is leading up to their support slot with Blink-182 on their Europe and UK headlining tour starting at the end of this month.
I like that this band was essentially holding this song hostage until they had a reason to release it. Like, yeah, you get the Blink tour and then you can start releasing music. Until then, like, no one gets anything.
No one gets anything until we've slotted a Blink tour, right?
It's been worth the 5 years.
It's been worth the fucking 5 years. I feel like I liked the Last Story So Far album. It was honestly my introduction to them, and I enjoyed it, but I didn't like love it. Like, I didn't lose my mind for the Story So Far in the way that I lost my mind like when I discovered Neck Deep, right?
Would you say it was like a proper dose of that band
It was
when you
precisely
first?
that.
Yeah.
It was precisely that. Yeah,
Neat.
it was more of a microdose, honestly. This is a proper dose. Like, this legitimately is a proper dose. Big Blind is a fucking great way to come back, and it's like, from what I understand, a story so far that people would be more familiar with from their inception as opposed to their most recent material. So similar to a lot of other pop punk bands, Neck Deep, again, they've gone back to their roots.
Which to me is actually like, this just sounds like a Neck Deep song.
Yeah, there's something about their nasally delivery that they kind of mirror one another in a little bit.
Yes.
But yeah, this is big. I wish we would have gotten a music video with it. I just feel like if you're going to roll out the fucking Return, like, let's do it big, right?
I do
Not
like the art for this.
It's cool
It's
art.
very stylistic.
It's cool art. It would exist as
holding some
cool art
cards.
on Spotify for all of eternity and still could have benefited from a music video,
Don't
right?
disagree.
Speaking of cool music videos, Marcus, Void Division released their new song, Angel of Darkness.
Watch me walk away, I'm taking everything you want. You wanted me to stay, I wanted you to let me know. I know I shouldn't say, it's killing me to let you go.
A statement was released alongside the track, and it's a bit fucking weird, so brace yourselves. Witnesses. The human body known as Jack Bergen, vocalist of Void Division, has been chosen for ascension. I will be communicating on his behalf. You won't believe what happens next. In observance, your angel of darkness. The band will support an Invent anime on the Heaven Tour this fall alongside Throne and Aviana.
I like that Void Division here are positioning themselves for direct support on an upcoming Sleep Token tour one day.
Oh, I 100%, 100. You know what it is? So in a sense, yes, it feels like Void Division said Sleep Token bullshit. We can do that too. No worries. But it also just feels like there's something about Australian bands right now where I think they just all kind of got bored with what they were doing and decided to just start experimenting and doing weird
Just
shit,
up the
right?
fucking ante.
Like, it just feels like Void Division was like, I don't know, we could do another metalcore album, but what if the fuck this is? And then like Thornhill was like, yeah, we could do like another Gent album, but like, what if weird shit?
Right.
Right.
And then like Gloom in the Corner was like, what if we just made an opera?
Right,
Like,
even
what if we
North
just did
Lane was
that?
like, not enough EDM on this metalcore record. Like, let's go hard this time around. Like, let's just shake things up a little bit. And Australian bands have always been fucking good about keeping us like on the precipice of what's next, right? And Angel of Darkness got a little bit of that flavor, right? Like, it's got a little bit of 2 steps behind Sleep Token, but 3 steps ahead of a lot of other bands, right?
How does the song stack up and compare to that?
You know what? It comes in a little soft, right? It comes in a little bit like okay,
It comes
and then
in
like it
slightly
pops off.
flat. It comes in
Right.
slightly flat for like the first minute, and then you got like a breakdown for 40 seconds, and suddenly the song is godly.
And then and part of the problem is too is that they're coming off of Chronicles, which was those like 3 EPs that turned into an album, and like that's
Flawless.
flawless, right? It was fucking amazing. So like they're coming off their like best shit ever, and then like they're sort of like transitioning at the same time. So I think it's like this feels like a soft landing, right?
Yeah.
Like we're coasting into doing it big.
It's very Yumi at 6 in the chorus as well. So maybe not what you would expect initially.
Yeah, so like I think there's a bit of an acclamation there that's kind of like you got to like get used to it, but like visually, aesthetically, conceptually knocking it out of the park.
Certainly.
Lorna Shore released a music video for Of the Abyss off their 2021 EP, and I Return to Nothingness. Alongside a new round of merch to celebrate the 2-year anniversary of the EP. Marcos, in the history of this fucking scene, has any band ever been like, let's run it back to that EP we dropped 2 years before even our most recent album that's out right now and
Not
drop a new
really.
like single, kind of?
Not really, but Lorna Shore has been operating at like a very high pace since Will joined the band. Like we spared no time in between that EP releasing and then Pain Remains, that first album with Will.
Sure.
So I actually really appreciate this decision to go back and give this song its flowers, because Of the Abyss is, you know, I guess it was sort of like the one track left behind on that EP.
Is that EP the greatest EP in history?
It's up there.
It's up there, right?
Really fucking
it's up there. Like, it was like, as the band says it. So specifically, guitarist Adam D'Amico on that EP. I don't think any one of us could predict what that EP would have done for the band, as well as us as individuals. These songs allowed us to do things we would have only dreamed of. We are extremely grateful for everything that came from that EP, and I want to celebrate its anniversary. Thank you for finding yourself in the body of work the way we have. Thank you for everything. And like, that only like grazes the surface of how like instrumental this EP has been, not in only Lorna Shore's rise, but almost like the rise of deathcore in its entirety as a genre.
Totally. And like you can sort of like visually see it. Like, this band, it's a live video for this track, and it's this band performing in front of massive crowds, and it's off of songs like Of the Abyss that they had the ability to do that, like Adam sort of hints at in that explanation for why they're celebrating its anniversary.
It awarded them those opportunities, right?
Yeah. So to me, it's like, yeah, you go back and give this song its proper due, its flowers, all that, because yeah, holy shit, you really wouldn't be where you are without it.
Because
like,
it fucking
that song
deserves
was
it.
Instrumental. Those 3 tracks were instrumental in getting this band where they are today. And you know, in all honesty, it hasn't been that long. Like, we're at the 2-year mark. A lot of bands would have coasted off of that EP for as long.
That's a fair fucking
releasing
point.
a new album.
It's just so rare to have gotten an album after it, but then to like circle back and do like.
I do think we've
It's a
seen
neat
it like
move that
once
I'd
or
like-
twice before.
I want to see more of it. I want to see bands go back and be like, oh yeah, no, this album was instrumental in our career. And hey, since everybody already loves it and this anniversary is coming up, let's do something fun, like go back and record a music video for one of the tracks.
That's sort of the key here, is like, if this was released a month from now, it's a little less special because there's nothing to really celebrate.
Right.
Like, saying, hey, yeah, no, the anniversary just happened.
Right.
Or it's happening.
It's
yeah,
coming
we love
up,
that
right.
song. We want to show you how much we love it. Here's a new video for it. Like, saying it's like the anniversary is key here.
And,
Without
like,
the anniversary, it doesn't make sense.
Let's be as cynical as possible. As a marketing tactic, like solely viewed in that way, it's brilliant, right? Because like you're like rebuilding a level of hype for something that is obviously tied to merch that I immediately spent $100 on, right? You know what I mean? Marcos, Vukovi signed to Sharp Tone Records and released their new single Creep Heat.
You're so sad. You're not gonna take me to paradise. I don't want this 'cause you're fine. I lost in that whole comply.
The song follows the 2022 sci-fi concept album and heavy music award-winning record Nula. The video for the track was directed by vocalist Janine Shillstone, who had this to say: "I want this to be a catalyst for more women to start believing they are more than capable of directing. The industry and future generations need us." Marcus, a lot to take in there. Let's start from the top, as always. Sharp Tone Records with a brand new signing, as usual, on the pulse of whatever's happening in the scene and immediately snagging whatever the hottest property
Man,
is.
it's crazy how you can tell Sharp Tone listens to the SOTS podcast.
That's precisely correct. We have spoken about Vukovi in the past.
Just saying, like it lines up with everything. Caskets.
Second point, brand new single Creep Heat. How do we feel about it?
This song's pretty fucking sick.
It's such a fascinating style that I feel like I don't really get from a lot of other projects.
It's got a real
I can't pinpoint
fascinating
it.
song structure as well,
Yes,
because
that's
it
it.
ends like twice, but then just keeps going.
Right, and then just shifts to something almost like completely different. And I think the video matches that energy very well too, where it just gets like dramatically more absurd in some ways.
Sure.
Right? It's
a weirder watch.
Very in your face. Yeah, but it's a weirder watch in like
In a
a
good
very
way.
compelling sense.
Yes.
Right. Like I can't turn away even when I'm watching somebody chew on a lipstick.
Well, we get into that third part. Like, as far as directing goes, this is one of the better directed videos I've watched all year.
Right, so it's funny to get someone be like, "Hey, yeah, I want to take my first shot at like directing a music video," and it's like, "Oh, okay, well, you're better than most people, honestly."
Really fucking good.
You
at
should
that.
start directing some of the other bands around you as well. Like it couldn't hurt. Yeah, this was a lot of fucking fun and also really weird, and I think it sort of sums up this band perfectly. Marcos, Delaire the Liar have dropped their new single, Angel Number, of upcoming EP Self Defense, which releases September 1st through Rude Records.
Another body for the bonfire. He thought the choice was his. No one's gonna let you down the way your father did. And at your husband's funeral.
The band had this to say on the EP. In the throes of desperation, there's no telling the lengths a person will go to preserve themselves or their loved ones. This EP presents a series of fictional scenarios to challenge the typical understanding of self-defense. The usual themes surrounding the topic are present: antagonism, violence, action, and reaction, but with a focus on the more drastic instances that require a less reflexive and more capacity for pain. Physical capacity for punishment, moral detachment, and sacrifice for the benefit of yourself or someone else. This EP explores whether there is any defense too drastic or too difficult to justify when love, pride, and responsibility is involved.
That's exactly why I love Delaire the Liar.
Layers?
The layers.
Layers. There's so many fucking
to
layers.
everything they do.
Marcus, this is a really cool band because we discovered them really early on in the pandemic, and I remember they really stood out to me because they had like a really unique approach to figuring out a way to record a music video and get their song across, even though obviously everyone had like their hands tied behind their back when it came to like dropping new music, right?
Yes.
And they felt like a really exciting project, and they've continued that trajectory forward where everything they've done has been really interesting and really exciting. And I think the description of this EP, like you said, continues to be fascinating and sort of like just completely like enveloped in layers.
That's like the main thing about this band is that they're exciting. Like it's one of those acts where I sort of watch everything they do with bated breath. Like I know whatever it is they choose to do next is going to be cool, so you can't help but pay attention.
Their breakout potential is absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Neat video. Maybe the first of the inspired dance videos that we've gotten this year. What used to be what felt like a weekly staple felt like it took a little nap, and now we're finally beginning to like see it rear its head once again.
And
it's a cool
still
location.
fine.
I could have used some band performance thrown in there as well. Yeah, I agree. Marcus, in the final story this week, Normandie are back with their new song, Blood in the Water.
There's blood in the water. We're poison in paradise. If I'm going under. Ooh, so I am. There's blood in the water. We're poison in paradise.
It's their first new song since 2021 album, Dark and Beautiful Secrets. Vocalist Philip had this to say on the new track. Blood in the Water is about how hurt people, how negativity is contagious, and how it can lead people into negative spirals where they unknowingly hurt the ones around them. So watching the music video to this, what you see is a sort of talk show meets game show from the 1950s aesthetic with individual people taking the stage, and you can see that they've been like backstabbed or beaten up or quote unquote hurt.
Yeah, and so the hurt people line is in the song. It's
Right.
like the bridge of this entire track. Hurt people, hurt people, hurt people, hurt. And it's just a really cool way to tie it all together.
The message is right there on its face. It can't be. You cannot overlook the message here.
Well, they've got like the logo for this new era is like this golden like smiley face thing, but then you also have hurt people above it and hurt people beneath it. And it almost looks like it's sun rays from a sun
Interesting. I didn't pick up
in
on
a
this.
way.
This is
And I don't know if that was
fascinating.
super intentional or not, but
Everything's intentional. So if you picked
Yeah.
up on it, I bet you there was something there.
Normandie, I can't believe it's been since 2021.
It's
that
like
album dropped.
aggravatingly been since 2021 because I
'Cause-
think I felt the missing of Normandie. I know you said like I can't believe, but I feel like I saw this band and I was like, thank fuck they're back.
Well, it's almost like I definitely started to feel it recently, but when you say it all out loud, yeah, it's been since 2021, but it's also been since early 2021 too. It wasn't like
Fair.
it dropped in October. I remember that album dropped in February or March, so it's been a very, very long
Right,
time.
like 2021 doesn't even accurately explain how long it's been.
Like Lorna Shore would have released an EP and an album in
And
that
7
time.
music videos in between. You're right.
Exactly.
That's precisely correct.
So yeah, Normandie are back. I'm happy to have them. This whole scene is back, apparently.
The whole scene's back. We are so fucking back. It's not
Yeah.
even funny. And Normandie is right there, like on everybody's tail. You know, up and coming band. Still one of the cleanest fucking vocal deliveries the scene has ever like had. Period.
Yep.
And I think "Blood in the Water" is a nice welcome back song, and I'm curious to see what we get next. That's been an episode, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Like I said before, if you watch on YouTube, leave a thumbs up. If you listen on Spotify or Apple, leave us 5 stars. We appreciate it. Love you. Bye.
Good bleh.